Introduction to Meditation, Session 4. This session will be about the left and right brain balance, and it's being held on February 2nd, 2017, Dalhousie University in room B400. We've covered 3 topics. This is our 4th session, and in the first one, we looked at some of the history and the philosophy behind meditation, going back thousands of years. Then we took a look at a Western view, what mainly science could tell us about meditation. And last week, we spent some time looking at relaxation and understanding that in terms of the physiological response generated when you meditate. And of course, today is the left-right brain balance. We'll be covering the topics today in pretty much this order, again allowing about 20 minutes for the review, about 20 minutes for brain balance material. We'll look at the physical body, we'll look at the energy system, focusing mainly on the meridians, the Eastern approach, and then we're going to take a look at spiritual balance. And remember, when I use the term spiritual, I'm really talking about our conscious experience of reality, or what we perceive as self. I'm going to spend some extra time looking at Qigong. This has come up as an interest area, as well as meridians. So I'm going to put some extra material on both of those. And as I did last week, I'm going to leave about 20 minutes at the end, so we have lots of time for our detachment meditation and time to come out of it and do some reflection at the end. Just want to point at the resources. One of the things I've noticed in classes before, attendees have asked for resource material. So this time I want to make sure you know where it is. If you can't find it, please let me know. Drop me a note or come and see me at the end of the class. Today I want to just give you more information about the Nova Scotia Tai Chi and Meditation Association. I am the president, and my experience mainly in the area of wellness. My key areas, as you probably know, is Tai Chi and meditation, with my background in traditional Chinese medicine and my work at St. Mary's. The vice president is Dr. Charles Beaupre, who has been at St. Mary's University for quite some time, and is also the director of the Confucius Institute, which is held at St. Mary's University. Charles has a specialty in health Qigong. Now, looking at the notes I received from session 3, they were fantastic, and this is my way of understanding what you're questioning, what you're feeling, how you're experiencing the presentations. There were 4 areas I'd like to just point out. A number of people made comments about feeling sleepy either during or after the meditation, or having, unusual feelings. That's what the period after the meditation is for. I like to call it grounding. So when you finish a meditation, take some time just until you feel like you've come back to normal. It's much like when you wake up from a sleep. You don't just jump up and, well, most people don't just jump out of bed and start moving. I take my time, and there's always that moment where you're waking up. Well, coming out of a meditation can be very much like that. So we'll talk about some techniques for grounding after the detachment meditation. Some other questions came up about postures, and someone asked about, is it okay to lay down? Well, I practice 3 different postures of meditation. I do a standing meditation, a traditional standing posture. I do the sitting posture that you're doing, but I also do a reclined posture where you lay down. And some of you who have taken yoga classes may have done that as well. There are all types of ways of getting exposure to meditative experiences, and I like the idea of computer apps, and hopefully I'll be able to work with someone in the future to produce some nice quick apps that you can put on your phone. So we'll be looking further into exercise when we focus on the Qigong. Now, the idea about waking or disturbing someone when they're meditating, I think the intent of that question was if they fall asleep. I would just leave them alone unless they had an urgent meeting. If I had to wake someone up if they had fallen asleep during a meditation, I'd do it really gently, much like I would if I was to wake someone from a deep sleep. I wouldn't go in and yell at them. So use common sense. Again, got some great overall feelings and feedback from people. This is really important for me to see that you are getting something out of this and things are starting to happen. That feedback's very important. It tells me that I'm on the right track. Also, what's coming out, this is kind of like requests for different topics I might speak about, but people are asking for resources. How to balance the diet, more about the yin and yang meridians, and so on. So I'm going to try to incorporate more material. If there's something specific that you want more of, just jot it down and I'll make a point of either weaving it into the course or getting something specific for you. Here's something for the people who want more on meridians and balancing the body. This is a starting point. Now, I will make this available to anyone who wants it. There's a link on the bottom. If you go to that link, you'll see this image. And if you follow the links, you'll go to the various websites. Please notice that in this graphic, it only shows the meridians on one side of the body. It shows the yin on one side and the yang on the other. In reality, you have 12 meridians on both sides of your body. Just wanted to point that out. They simplified this graphic to make it easier to read. So there's 12 meridians on both sides of the body. For those who want more information about food, here's a nice chart I found. Again, I will make this available to anyone who wants it. Follow the link on the bottom. You'll find this graphic, and then you can get to the website. But even with this, you could on your own just track to see whether you're eating mostly yang foods or mostly yin, or whether you have a nice mix of both. You could experiment and deliberately eat mostly yang to see if that has a change on you over a week, say, period. Or the reverse, you could cut out all the heavy yang foods and just go to more yin or more neutral foods and see if you notice a difference. But you can play with it. It's perfectly safe, you know. And the nice thing about using foods and herbs is that they don't have any contraindications normally. And if they do, if you buy an herb in a health food store or whatever, the clerk there will tell you if there are any contraindications, such as pregnancy or high blood pressure. But just use common sense again and go in moderation, make small changes over short periods of time, and keep a journal. Now, here are some of the terms and concepts that will be popping up today. When we go into the physical body, we're going to have to look at the hemispheres of the brain, the cerebral hemispheres. There's an area that links the two hemispheres together, and we'll talk about the corpus callosum. I'm going to focus again in more detail on Qigong, that's coming up. And under Qigong, there's something I'm developing. It's called full brain movement, and it's an exercise regime. It's a whole protocol for developing specific aspects of the brain using these movements. And they're more of a preparation for doing Tai Chi and Qigong, but I'll explain that later. In order to do this, we have to talk about something called neural pathways. Very, very important aspect of learning day-to-day functioning. The neural pathways really are quite key. And then finally, I'll talk about cybernetic loops. I love those really unique names. Do you know why I use funny names like that? Because if I use a commonplace name, there might be too many associations with that name. So I'd like to pick names that aren't loaded with previous history, and so that when I mention it, it's a blank screen, and then we can fill it in with more detailed information that pertains directly to what I'm talking about. So Partly because it's fun to use these nice names, but also there's a specific reason to not have names that might suggest something else. Words are really awkward like that. Pop quiz. Yes, a pop quiz. I'm going to test your memory. One of the things that you may have noticed over the years of being in school is that you got pop quizzes and how difficult it was to remember things. So I'm going to show you an example of recalling frames. And as you recall from our previous sessions, a frame is how we think. We think in frames. So I want you to go back to the second class and remember the meditation, the guided meditation we did then. See what you can remember of it right now, what you can recall. Just pull that frame up with that last memory. And I'm going to ask you a question. I mentioned a food item. Do you remember what food item I mentioned? Do you remember what color it was? Do you remember your reaction? Now, when you're doing this, what I'd like you to do is pay attention to whether you're seeing a visual representation of that class, whether you're hearing my words say the food, or whether you're having a feeling about how you felt in the chair when you heard it, the laughter or whatever. Remember that there's 18 modes of thinking, 6 from the past, 6 that you're experiencing and processing right now, and 6 for the future that you have to construct. They don't exist, never have existed. You make them up. We'll talk more about this in the actual class. I'm very interested to understand how people recall and remember things. And I usually visualize what I need to remember. So if I need to remember a word, I'll see it written on a piece of paper. Recently I had to remember the author's name of a particular topic. And what I did was, in my mind, I replayed the video that I saw. And when I saw the video in my mind, I saw the person. And I still didn't get the name. And you know what I did? I pretend I saw the title frame of the opening of the movie. And there was their name. Neat, eh? So today we're going to do a guided meditation, but I'm calling it a self-directed. So we're going to do the walking through the body, but I want you to do it on your own. I'm going to give you some period of time, and I'll give you the instructions if you don't remember, and you're going to do the guided meditation yourself. Let's do that now. So today's topic is left and right brain balance. So to do that, I had to look up a definition of brain, and this is what I got. Pretty much brick and mortar description. They talk about the central nervous system and the vertebrae and so on like that. So it's very much the biology of the body. But that didn't talk about balancing, so I needed to look up balance. So when I looked up balance, this is what I got. Something very different. Balance was projected as a mental and emotional steadiness. The quote is, "I doubt that Thoreau would have been thrown off balance by the fantastic sights and sound of the 21st century." So balance in this context is more to do with your mental state or state of mind. And we're going to use that in conjunction with the physical to show the relationship, if there is a relationship between the two. So here's a picture, a graphic of the cerebral hemispheres. And what I'd like you to notice here is that they are divided and they function pretty much independently. And there's a crossover. So if you notice the hand with the pencil in it on the right-hand side, upper right, and you look on the graphic of the brain, it's on the left side. So your physical side, your right side, is controlled and managed by the left side of the brain. So they go in opposite. But one thing I find of interest here, if you look at the eyes, part of one eye is controlled by the opposite brain, but another part goes to the same side. So your right eye is covered by both the left and right hemisphere. Same thing with your hearing. Now, the thing I like to point out there is that strip in the center. This is where all the magic happens. So a lot of what I do in meditation and in Tai Chi and in Qigong is to stimulate the information flow between the two brains. So what you need to get is a balanced state so that information can flow back and forth as needed. I'd like you to try this. You see this gentleman's arms crossed? I'd like you to adopt that position in your arms right now. Notice which hand is on top. Now reverse it. Put that hand on the bottom. Now try this one. Fold your hands together and notice which thumb is on top. Is it your right thumb or your left thumb on top? If it's your right thumb on top, put your left on top and fold your hands. In both situations, you want to notice that one way felt more normal or felt like regular, and the other way, when you reverse the positions of the arms and reverse the positions of the hands, you may have had a strong sense of it not feeling right. And this has to do with how we tend to favor certain movements with one side or the other. Now, this has an impact on our neural pathway development. If you have more neural networking going on, holding your hands with the thumb, with the right thumb on top or the left thumb on top, that's going to be easier to do, and it's going to feel more normal. It's going to feel like you can do it, and that's the way you always feel. So this, we call it having a rooted pathway of behavior. It's basically, if you practice something a lot, it becomes easier to do. It feels more normal. Now, here's the relationship between emotional state and brain activity. On the left, you see someone in their, say, normal state. So we'll assume that they're not aggravated, they're just sitting there feeling relatively calm. And you'll notice that the activity on the image on the left, there appears to be somewhat of a balance. Now here's someone who's experiencing anxiety, a panic. This person has an anxiety panic disorder. And I assume from this MRI that they are in the midst of having some kind of anxiety attack at the moment. Now, notice here, not only is it not as balanced as the one on the left, but notice the the red is high activity. The darker colors are less activity. So the yellow is, maybe call it mid-range. Yellow and green are nice mid-range colors. But then those reds, spiking up, high activities, unbalanced, high activity. So clearly, a person's emotional state affects the balancing of the brain. Here's another one related now to disease. So here's 3 images on the top which are being classified as a somewhat normal brain. And again, notice that the light and dark areas on both hemispheres, if you draw a straight line down the center of those 3 images, that would be the dividing line. They look somewhat balanced. They look pretty balanced to me. The first one there looks a little bit different, but well, that seems to be okay. But when you look at the one at the bottom, this is someone suffering from Alzheimer's. Notice the frontal lobes are dark, and the back portion, the portion on the bottom of the photograph, is fired up. A lot of firing and excessive activity. So disease reflects itself in these hemispheres. When you experience something like pain, here is a high definition MRI, and on the left you see someone who is trying to rest, but they are experiencing pain. Either they're probably laying down in the MRI machine when they're being scanned. And you could see that object, that golden object. But this object disappears or shrinks dramatically when they meditate. The rest of the image looks pretty similar. The amount of brightness in the center and activity looks pretty similar, except for the pain is gone. So this particular study was aiming at managing pain through meditation. I want to talk about how to balance the brain through the energy. Now, as you recall, when we talked about relaxation, that the parasympathetic that handled the relaxation response, i.e. the yin, I like to think of the parasympathetic as yin and the sympathetic as yang. Now here we have one of the 12 meridians, Sanzhou, and it's considered to be the three treasures. It's considered being one of the balancing meridians. Most of the meridians are associated with a particular organ. This meridian is dealing with balancing. And it has 24 points, and the points are numbered. And what we're going to do, we're going to look at how to use this meridian to balance. So I have a little exercise, 3 points that you can massage. And in the class, we will go and practice these 3 points. They're really easy to do, and you can do them anytime, and they help you center and relax and energize the body. Another way of balancing the body is through the practice of Qigong. Now, I'd like to mention here that there are a number of different spellings of some of these words. Don't be thrown off by that. I like the pinyin a way of spelling out the sounding of the Mandarin words, but you'll see that Qigong spelled with a QI. You'll see it the way I like to spell it, with the CHI for Qi. Whether you say Qi or Gi or whatever, you're saying the same thing. And so this description here, I think, covers it quite nicely. Qigong is an ancient Chinese healthcare system that integrates physical postures, breathing techniques, and focused intention. Now, I really want to point out here that these 3 things are important, and I'll talk about the qualities of the movement. It's not the movement themselves as much as it is the way that you do them. Very, very important. So it's postures. Here are some of the ancient postures. What I'd like you to notice here is that they show these postures moving. Now wait a minute, they said postures and now they're showing movements. Well, here is the problem. Think of a posture as a dot. Now you have to get from dot A to dot B. You have to draw the line between the dots. And one of the things I discovered in people learning Qigong and learning Tai Chi from me is that they had difficulty moving from one dot to the other. They didn't have the neural information. They didn't have the pathways in order to make these transitions. So here's a graph from the Full Brain Project, and these are showing the nerve fibers. There are billions of them. So there are billions of neural synapses making trillions of interconnections. These interconnections are what they call the neural pathways, how they actually connect together. But you can see there's a lot of spaghetti there. So if for some reason, just like you notice with the arm and hand exercise, if you have difficulty changing arms or changing hand positions, it's because you didn't have enough neural pathways there to make it easy. I find the same problem with learning Tai Chi and Qigong. So with the full brain movement, I actually help you develop the neural information necessary to move from point A to point B. Now you can still do the postures and the movements without doing the full brain movement exercise, but this just makes it faster and I think heightens the overall experience. You're populating your brain. So in our next session, I will give you a quick introduction to the full brain movement exercises. Now, when we talk about spiritual balance, you could replace the word spiritual with conscious or state of mind balance. Here's a model or graphic of the internal map of reality, and I've mentioned that a number of times. It's a construct of how we view ourselves. The things that you hold to be of value affect your beliefs, which affects your mental states and behavior, and the world reacts to that and comes back to you as feedback. This loop is very important. Now, what's interesting, feedback loops are very common. In fact, you can find them everywhere. Some of you might remember the famous guitar player Jimi Hendrix, who used to do feedback through his guitar and speaker system. Those of you who have ever gone to a fairground and gone into the hall of mirrors and stood between two mirrors and noticed it went off into infinity. Feedbacks are magical. Here's an example of a feedback loop. Fractals. Fractals are just a very simple mathematical equation, or they can be simple. Some of them can get more complicated. And as you can see by the loop there, they just feed the equation, the results of the equation, back into the equation many, many times. Computers help this happen very rapidly. But when you do that, when there's a feedback, something magical happens. Take a look at this graphic. This graphic is the result of a feedback loop. Isn't it beautiful? So feedback loops are a way of strengthening an existing belief or value. If you value something and you believe that if you act in a certain way, such as meditating, and you get good results, it strengthens itself and it grows. We're going to talk about this when we go into conscious awareness and how powerful it is. It's a very, very powerful component. When we meditate, when we do the traditional meditation today, I want you just to keep in the back of your mind that you're creating a feedback loop. When you're sitting there in the posture, this is a Qigong posture, when you're sitting there in a posture, staying perfectly still, you're creating a feedback within the mind. And we talked about the relaxation system affecting the midbrain and how the midbrain would then begin to balance. And this grows as you focus, and the longer you do your meditation, the stronger this feedback loop becomes. Okay, we're going to do our traditional meditation. I have a few more things to say about it. I believe today we were going to spend a little bit more time on the posture, the actual sitting position. But this is going to be our theme when we practice the detachment meditation. So let's do that now. Well, that's it for today's session. Again, I'd like to thank you for watching this video and attending the class. Our next session, we're going to look at the frequencies of the brain. And this will be the 5th session. And it will be sort of a shift. After we do the frequencies of the brain, we're going to move away from the more scientific nuts and bolts and get into more the personal development. So that will be on February 9th at Dalhousie University, again back in room B400. I'd like to thank you for attending.